Trevor Hartman stood in his downtown penthouse office, staring at the guest list spreadsheet on his computer screen. His fingers hovered over the keyboard as a vindictive smile crossed his face. The wedding was 3 months away, and he had just thought of the perfect addition to make his special day even more satisfying. "Mitchell, come look at this," Trevor called to his best friend, who was reviewing seating charts at the conference table. Mitchell walked over, loosening his tie. "What's up? Did you finally decide on the salmon or the chicken?" "Better than that." Trevor's eyes gleamed. "I'm going to invite Cassie." Mitchell's eyebrows shot up. "Your ex-wife, Cassie? The one you divorced 5 years ago? Are you serious?" "Completely serious." Trevor leaned back in his leather chair, interlacing his fingers behind his head. "I want her to see what she gave up. I want her to watch me marry Veronica, see this life I've built, and realize what a mistake she made." Mitchell frowned, crossing his arms. "Trevor, that's pretty harsh. What did Cassie ever do to you besides agree to a mutual divorce?" "She held me back," Trevor snapped, his expression hardening. "Always with her struggling artist routine, her tiny apartment, her refusal to give up on that ridiculous dream of opening a gallery. She never wanted to attend my business functions, never fit into my world. Now look at me. I'm marrying a woman who gets it, who enhances my image, who actually contributes to my success." Mitchell shook his head but said nothing. He had known Trevor since college and had watched his friend become increasingly focused on status and appearances. The Trevor he once knew, the one who had genuinely loved Cassie's free spirit and creativity, seemed to have vanished somewhere along the way. "Do what you want," Mitchell finally said, "but don't be surprised if this backfires on you." Trevor waved dismissively. "How could it backfire? Last I heard through mutual friends she was still scraping by, selling paintings at weekend markets. She probably lives in the same cramped studio apartment in the Arts District. This will be the event of the season. She'll show up in some thrift store dress and realize exactly what she lost." That evening, Trevor sat at the marble kitchen island of the home he shared with Veronica, crafting the invitation email. Veronica was in the living room, filming content for her lifestyle blog, her ring light casting a glow through the open doorway. "Dear Cassandra," he typed, then paused. Too formal. He deleted it and started again. "Cassie, I hope this message finds you well. Veronica and I are getting married on June 15th at the Grandview Estate. Despite how things ended between us, I wanted to extend an invitation to you. I believe we've both moved on with our lives, and it would mean a lot to have you there to celebrate this new chapter. I've included a +1 if you're seeing anyone. Looking forward to seeing you there. Best, Trevor." He reread it 3 times, satisfied with the false warmth and the subtle digs. The mention of the exclusive Grandview Estate, the assumption that she might not have a date, the patronizing tone disguised as friendliness. Perfect. Veronica appeared in the doorway, phone still in hand. "What are you working on, babe?" "Just finalizing the guest list," Trevor said, hitting send before he could second-guess himself. "Added one more person?" "Oh, who?" Veronica slid onto the stool beside him, smelling of expensive perfume. "My ex-wife." Veronica's perfectly microbladed eyebrows rose. "Interesting choice? Is that going to be awkward?" Trevor put his arm around her waist. "Not at all. Trust me, it's going to be perfect. She'll see what real success looks like, and you'll shine even brighter by comparison." Veronica laughed, though something flickered in her eyes. "If you say so, just don't let her ruin our big day." "She couldn't ruin anything if she tried," Trevor assured her. "She's probably still struggling to make rent." What Trevor didn't know was that his email had just arrived in the inbox of someone very different from the woman he remembered. The Cassie he had divorced, the one who had struggled to pay bills and often went without meals to afford art supplies, no longer existed. Across town, in a converted warehouse loft with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river, Cassandra. Hartman sat at her minimalist desk, a glass of wine beside her laptop. She had just returned from a gallery opening in New York, where 3 of her curated exhibitions had sold for record prices. Her phone buzzed with the email notification, and she glanced at the sender name, Trevor Hartman. She hadn't heard from him in 5 years, not since the divorce papers were signed. Their separation had been clean, civil, and, in retrospect, the best thing that had ever happened to her. Curious, she opened the email and read it slowly, her expression unreadable. Laugh escaped her lips, soft and genuine. She could read between every line, see every calculated word choice. He wanted to humiliate her, to parade his new life in front of her like a trophy. "Julian, you have to see this," she called out. Julian Foster, her business partner and closest friend, emerged from the guest room he used as an office when working late. His silver-streaked hair and designer glasses gave him a distinguished appearance. "What's so amusing?" Cassie turned the laptop toward him. "My ex-husband just invited me to his wedding." Julian read the email, his lips quirking into a smile. "Oh, he has no idea, does he?" "None whatsoever," Cassie confirmed, taking another sip of wine. "He still thinks I'm the struggling artist he left behind." "Are you going to go?" Julian asked, leaning against the desk. Cassie stared out the window at the city lights, considering. Part of her wanted to ignore it, to let Trevor live in his delusions. But another part, the part that had clawed her way up from rock bottom and built an empire, wanted him to see exactly who she had become. Not for revenge, not to hurt him, but to prove to herself that she had truly moved on, that his opinion of her no longer mattered. "Yes," she said finally, turning back to Julian with a determined smile. "I think I will." Cassie woke up the next morning to sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows of her loft. She stretched luxuriously in her king-sized bed, a far cry from the lumpy futon she had slept on during her marriage to Trevor. Those days felt like a distant dream, a different lifetime altogether. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Rebecca, her assistant, had sent the day's schedule. 2 client meetings, a lunch with potential investors for the new gallery branch, and a conference call with an art dealer in Paris. Cassie smiled, remembering when her biggest concern had been whether she could afford both groceries and canvas that week. After a quick shower, she dressed in a tailored emerald suit that cost more than her entire wardrobe had during her marriage. She had learned that success was not just about money, but about how you presented yourself to the world. Trevor had once criticized her paint-stained jeans and messy bun. Now, she could buy his entire wardrobe without checking her bank account. Julian arrived at 9 carrying 2 cappuccinos from the artisan cafe downstairs. He had been her mentor when she first started, the established gallery owner who saw potential in her work when no one else did. Their partnership had transformed both their careers. "Still thinking about the wedding?" Julian asked, handing her a cup. Cassie settled into her office chair, surrounded by original artwork worth millions. "I've been thinking about it all night. Part of me wonders if going is giving him too much power, letting him think he still matters to me." "Does he?" Julian asked gently. "No," Cassie said firmly. "But I want him to see that his abandonment didn't break me. It freed me." Julian nodded, thoughtfully. "Then go, not for him but for you. Close that chapter properly." Rebecca knocked on the open door, tablet in hand. She was young, ambitious, and reminded Cassie of herself years ago. "Your 10 o'clock is here. The Pembrokes, looking for contemporary pieces for their new estate." Cassie stood, smoothing her jacket. "Show them to the viewing room. I'll be right there." The morning passed in a blur of meetings and negotiations. Cassie had discovered she had a natural talent for understanding what clients wanted before they knew themselves. She could read a room, sense hesitation, and close deals with a combination of charm and expertise that had made her one of the most sought-after curators in the city. At lunch, she met with the investment group at a rooftop restaurant. The proposal was simple. Expand her gallery brand to 3 additional cities within 2 years. The numbers were staggering, the opportunity enormous. 5 years ago, she couldn't have imagined sitting at this table discussing millions of dollars with people who respected her opinion. "Your track record speaks for itself, Ms. Hartman," said Patricia Wong, the lead investor. "Every exhibition you've curated has exceeded projected sales by at least 30%. That's remarkable." "I believe in the artists I represent," Cassie explained. "When you genuinely support creative vision, financial success follows naturally." The investors exchanged glances and nods. By the time dessert arrived, they had agreed to fund the expansion. Cassie maintained her composure until she returned to her car, then allowed herself a moment of pure joy, texting Julian with 3 celebration emojis. Back at the loft that evening, Cassie stood in her walk-in closet, considering her options for Trevor's wedding. She owned designer gowns now, each one a work of art. But this required something special, something that would make a statement without being obvious. Her phone rang. It was Oliver Chen, her fashion designer friend who had dressed her for countless gallery openings and charity galas. "Julian told me about the wedding," Oliver said without preamble. "I'm designing your dress. Don't argue." Cassie laughed. "I wasn't going to argue. What did you have in mind?" "Something that says successful, sophisticated, and completely unbothered. I'm thinking midnight blue silk, classic cut, nothing flashy. Let your confidence do the talking." "Perfect," Cassie agreed. "When can you start?" "I already started. Come by the studio tomorrow for measurements." After hanging up, Cassie poured herself a glass of wine and stood by the windows, looking out at the city. She thought about the woman she had been, the one Trevor had found inadequate. That Cassie had been scared, uncertain, desperately trying to fit into a world that didn't want her. The divorce had shattered her. For months, she had believed Trevor was right, that she was a failure, that her dreams were childish fantasies. She had hit rock bottom in that cramped apartment, surviving on instant noodles and doubting everything about herself. Then Julian had walked into the weekend market where she was selling her paintings. He had studied her work for 20 minutes, without speaking, then offered her an exhibition at his gallery. She had thought he was joking. "I'm serious," he had said. "You have a unique perspective, a voice that deserves to be heard. Give me 3 months. If nothing sells, you've lost. Nothing. If it works, we become partners." Every piece had sold. The exhibition became the talk of the art world. Suddenly, Cassie wasn't a struggling artist, but an emerging talent. Julian had taught her the business side, introducing her to collectors and investors. She had absorbed everything like a sponge, discovering she had as much talent for entrepreneurship as she did for art. Within 2 years, they had opened the Hartman-Foster Gallery, combining their names and expertise. Within 4 years, they were representing some of the most exciting artists in the country. Cassie had kept her married name, not out of attachment to Trevor, but because she had built her reputation with it. It was hers now, not his. Her phone buzzed with a text from Mitchell, Trevor's best man. They had stayed in touch occasionally, friendly but distant. "Heard Trevor invited you to the wedding. You don't have to come. I know he's being a jerk about it." Cassie smiled and typed back. "Actually, I'm looking forward to it. It'll be good to see everyone." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, "You've done well for yourself, haven't you?" "I have," Cassie replied simply. "Good. He deserves to see that." The next morning, Cassie went to Oliver's studio for her fitting. He had created a masterpiece, a floor-length gown in deep midnight blue that seemed to shimmer when she moved. The cut was elegant and timeless, with a subtle sophistication that spoke of wealth without screaming. "You look like royalty," Oliver said, circling her with approval. Not trying too hard, just effortlessly perfect. It's beautiful, Cassie breathed, turning in front of the mirror. Thank you. There's one more thing, Oliver said, disappearing. Into his back room, he returned with a jewelry box. These are on loan from Castellanos. Sapphire earrings and a matching bracelet. They'll photograph beautifully. Cassie shook her head. Oliver, I can't accept this. You can, and you will. Consider it my investment in seeing Trevor's face when you walk in. He grinned mischievously. Julian may have mentioned why you're really going. As the weeks passed and the wedding approached, Cassie threw herself into work. The new gallery locations were secured, the expansion was underway, and she had just signed a deal to curate a major exhibition at a national museum. Her calendar was so full that she sometimes forgot about the wedding entirely. But when she did, remember, she felt a strange mixture of anticipation and peace. She wasn't the woman Trevor had married, and she certainly wasn't the broken woman he had divorced. She had become someone entirely new, someone she was proud of. The night before the wedding, Julian came over with takeout and moral support. Are you nervous? He asked, unpacking containers of Thai food. Surprisingly, no, Cassie said honestly. I think I'm actually curious. Curious to see if he's changed, if he's happy, if any of what he chased actually fulfilled him. And if it did? Julian asked. Cassie shrugged. Then I'm happy for him. We wanted different things. There's no villain in that story, just two people who grew apart. You're remarkably mature about this, Julian observed. I've had 5 years to process it, Cassie said. And those 5 years taught me that the best revenge is no revenge at all. It's just living well, being happy, and not letting the past define you. Julian raised his wine glass. To living well. To living well, Cassie echoed, clinking her glass against his. As she went to bed that night, Cassie felt a calm certainty settle over her. Tomorrow would be interesting, perhaps even uncomfortable at moments. But she was ready. She had nothing to prove to Trevor, but everything to prove to herself. She had survived his rejection, built something extraordinary, and become the person she was always meant to be. The woman who would walk into that wedding tomorrow was not someone to be pitied or patronized. She was someone to be reckoned with. And Trevor Hartman was about to learn that lesson in the most public way possible. The Grandview Estate sparkled under the June sun, its manicured gardens and elegant fountains creating a picture-perfect backdrop for Trevor's wedding. White roses adorned every surface, and a string quartet played softly as guests arrived in their designer attire. Trevor stood near the entrance in his custom tuxedo, greeting arrivals with Veronica at his side, her white dress glittering with crystals. This is perfect, Veronica whispered, adjusting her veil. Everyone who matters is here. Trevor scanned the crowd, looking for one person in particular. He had been checking all morning, wondering if Cassie would actually show up. Part of him hoped she would, imagining her awkward arrival in outdated clothes, her discomfort at seeing his success. Another part worried she might not come at all, denying him his moment of triumph. Mitchell approached, adjusting his best man boutonniere. You still sure about this whole invitation thing? Relax, Trevor said, his jaw tight. It's going to be fine. Inside the estate, guests mingled in the grand ballroom, sipping champagne and admiring the lavish decorations. Trevor's father, Gerald Hartman, held court near the bar, boasting about his son's accomplishments to anyone who would listen. The room buzzed with the conversations of business associates, socialites, and influencers, all carefully selected to enhance Trevor's image. Then the energy in the room shifted. Cassie stepped through the entrance, and it was as if someone had pressed pause on the entire wedding. The midnight blue gown flowed around her like liquid silk, the sapphire jewelry catching the light with every movement. Her hair was styled in an elegant updo, her makeup subtle but flawless. But it was not her appearance that stopped people in their tracks. It was the aura of confidence. the unmistakable presence of someone who belonged in rooms far more exclusive than this one. "Is that Cassandra Hartman?" someone whispered. "The gallery owner? I heard she just closed a deal worth millions." "I tried to get into her last exhibition. Sold out in hours." Trevor's champagne glass nearly slipped from his hand. This could not be the same woman. The Cassie he remembered wore paint-stained clothes and apologized for existing. This woman glided through the room like she owned it, her smile warm but reserved, her posture radiating success. Veronica gripped Trevor's arm. "That's your ex-wife? You said she was nobody." "She was," Trevor stammered, unable to look away. "I mean, she is. This must be some kind of act." But it was not an act. Cassie moved through the crowd with practiced ease, greeting old acquaintances with genuine warmth. People gravitated toward her, drawn by the magnetic pull of real success, rather than performed wealth. "Cassie, darling!" Patricia Wong, the investor from Cassie's lunch meeting, swept over with her husband. "I didn't know you knew the groom. Small world." "We have history," Cassie said diplomatically. "Congratulations on your wedding, Trevor." She had finally acknowledged him. Trevor forced a smile, his mind racing. "Cassie, you look different." 5 years will do that," she replied smoothly. "Veronica, you look beautiful. I hope you'll both be very happy." Veronica's smile was frozen, her eyes darting between Cassie and Trevor. "Thank you. Trevor mentioned you were an artist?" "I was," Cassie said. "Now I'm primarily a curator and gallery owner, though I still paint when inspiration strikes." "The Hartman-Foster Gallery," Patricia interjected enthusiastically. "We just invested in their expansion. 3 new locations opening next year. Very exciting venture." Trevor felt the ground shift beneath him. Gallery owner. Investor backing. Expansion. These were not the words associated with the struggling woman he had imagined. Gerald Hartman appeared, having overheard the conversation. "Cassandra? Good Lord, is that really you?" He embraced her warmly, something he had rarely done during her marriage to Trevor. "I heard about your gallery from the Pembrokes. They bought several pieces from your contemporary collection. Said you have an extraordinary eye." "Thank you, Gerald. That means a lot coming from you." Trevor watched in growing horror as his father, who had barely tolerated Cassie during their marriage, engaged her in an animated discussion about the art market. Other guests began clustering around them, asking Cassie about her work, requesting business cards, mentioning artists they wanted her to evaluate. Mitchell appeared at Trevor's elbow. "I tried to warn you." "You knew?" Trevor hissed. "I knew she had done well. I didn't know she had done this well." Mitchell shrugged. "Maybe you should have kept in touch instead of assuming the worst." The ceremony was scheduled to begin, but the crowd's attention remained divided. Even as guests took their seats, whispers continued about Cassie, about her success, about how elegant she looked. Veronica noticed her smile growing tighter with each overheard comment. "Everyone is talking about her instead of me," Veronica muttered to Trevor as they prepared to walk down the aisle. "This is my wedding day." "Our wedding day," Trevor corrected absently, still watching Cassie take a seat near the back, her posture relaxed and confident. The ceremony proceeded as planned, but Trevor could barely focus on his vows. His eyes kept drifting to where Cassie sat, serene and unbothered. She smiled politely during the readings, applauded at appropriate moments, and showed no signs of the heartbreak or envy he had anticipated. At the reception, things deteriorated further. Cassie was immediately surrounded by guests wanting to discuss art, business, and her upcoming projects. Trevor watched from the head table as his own wedding became secondary to the Cassandra Hartman show. "This is unbelievable," Veronica said, barely touching her food. "You invited her to humiliate her, and instead she's stealing our spotlight." I didn't know, Trevor said weakly. When we divorced, she was barely surviving. Well, she's clearly not barely surviving now. Veronica's voice was sharp. Do something! But what could he do? Make a scene at his own wedding? Demand that people stop talking to his successful ex-wife? Trevor realized with sinking dread that he had orchestrated his own humiliation. Julian arrived fashionably late, making his way directly to Cassie's table. Trevor watched them laugh together, easy and comfortable in a way he and Cassie had never been. Julian was distinguished, successful, clearly wealthy. Were they together? The thought made Trevor's stomach twist. During the dinner, Gerald approached, the head table. Trevor, you should reconnect with Cassandra professionally. Her network could be valuable for your business. I'm considering commissioning some pieces for the company headquarters. I'll think about it, Trevor said through gritted teeth. Don't think too long, Gerald advised. I spoke with 3 other people who want to work with her. She's in high demand. Mitchell gave the best man speech, keeping it light and funny, but Trevor noticed he kept glancing at Cassie with approval. Even his best friend seemed impressed by her transformation. When the dancing began, Cassie remained at her table, engaged in conversation with various guests. She never sought attention, but it came to her naturally. Trevor watched a tech entrepreneur he had been trying to network with for months sit down with Cassie, laughing at something she said. Finally, as the evening wore on, Trevor could not contain himself any longer. He approached Cassie's table during a rare moment when she was alone, Julian having stepped away to take a phone call. Can we talk? Trevor asked stiffly. Cassie looked up, her expression neutral. Of course. They moved to a quieter corner of the terrace, away from the music and chatter. The sun was setting, casting golden light across the gardens. You've done well for yourself, Trevor said, struggling to keep the bitterness from his voice. Thank you. So have you, from what I can see. Why didn't you tell me? The question burst out before he could stop it. Why did you let me think you were still struggling? Cassie tilted her head, studying him with those calm eyes. You never asked, Trevor. We haven't spoken in 5 years. Why would I update you on my life? I just assumed. You assumed I would fail without you, Cassie finished gently. I know. That's why you invited me here, was it not? To show me what I was missing, to make me feel small. Trevor had the grace to look ashamed. I thought you held me back during our marriage. And I thought you stifled me, Cassie replied. We were both wrong and both right. We wanted different things, Trevor. You wanted status and image. I wanted authenticity and passion. Neither is wrong, but they don't mix well. You seem happy, Trevor said, and for the first time that day he sounded sincere. I am. Very happy. Are you? The question hung in the air. Trevor thought about his carefully curated life, his image-conscious marriage to Veronica, his constant need to prove himself. Was he happy or was he just successful? I thought I was, he admitted quietly. Cassie's expression softened. Then I hope you figure that out. Real happiness is not about what other people see, Trevor. It is about what you feel when you are alone, with yourself. Julian returned, giving Trevor a polite nod. Ready to go, Cassie? We have an early flight to Milan tomorrow. Milan? Trevor asked. Art fair? Cassie explained, standing gracefully. We're scouting new artists for the European expansion. She touched Trevor's arm briefly, a gesture that held no malice, only closure. Congratulations on your marriage, Trevor. I genuinely hope you find what you are looking for. As Cassie walked away with Julian, Trevor stood on the terrace watching them go. Around him, his wedding continued, but something had fundamentally shifted. He had planned this day to prove his superiority, to validate his choices. Instead, he had been confronted with the uncomfortable truth that leaving Cassie had not been his triumph. It had been hers. Veronica appeared beside him, her expression cold. Well, That was mortifying. Everyone is going to remember your ex-wife's grand entrance instead of our wedding. Trevor turned to look at his new wife, really look at her. She was beautiful, successful in her own right, everything he thought he wanted. But standing there in her crystal-covered dress, worried about appearances and what people would remember, he realized something troubling. He had married a reflection of himself. Inside, the party continued. Guests danced and laughed, the night air filled with music and celebration. But Trevor remained on the terrace, watching the taillights of Cassie's car disappear down the long driveway, carrying with her the ghost of who he used to be and the painful awareness of who he had become. Mitchell joined him eventually, 2 glasses of scotch in hand. He offered one to Trevor without speaking. "I made a mistake, did I not?" Trevor finally said. "Which one?" Mitchell asked. "Inviting her, underestimating her, or letting her go in the first place?" Trevor had no answer. He sipped his scotch and stared out at the darkness, wondering when exactly success had stopped meaning happiness, and whether the life he had built was truly his own or just a performance for an audience that would never be satisfied. Inside, Veronica was already planning posts for her social media, carefully cropping photos to exclude Cassie, controlling the narrative. But Trevor knew the truth. This wedding would not be remembered for its elegance or exclusivity. It would be remembered as the day Trevor Hartman learned that the woman he had tried to shame had risen far higher than he ever would. And the real shock was not her wealth or success. It was realizing that she had found something he was still searching for, genuine contentment with who she had become.